Hey everyone, it's Josh again, video number 2. So I just wanted to hop on for a bit and kind of talk a little bit more about Leo. So at the end of the last video, I showed you a couple statues, kind of discussed a little bit about who I am, kind of an overview, surface level of what I do, and kind of a bit of a step towards how I got there. So yeah, I would like to talk about Leo now. So here we go. So I will grab this just again for those of you that may have not seen. This is Leo before his transformation. This is his initial form when he's first created, first born, in my comic universe. In the comic that I'm about to release, you will get to see a little bit more of him in that form. And this one is Leo in his armored form when he's fully realized and transformed from the first stage of his birth to who he is now. Oh, and I almost broke it. Nice. Okay, so Leo is the main character of my comic book series, Leo. He's a symbiotic robot, and he's the leader of an elite team called the Shavath, which, again, I'll learn about more later. His character is inspired by things that I've enjoyed growing up as a child, so Bionicle, Master Chief from Halo, Iron Man, which I was a huge fanatic of when I seen the first movie come out in 2008, I think. Leonidas from 300, the Greek Spartans, and Venom. There's some other inspirations here and there that I pulled from, but those are the main ones. So back to his team. So the Shavath are a highly elite team of warriors that are tasked to protect their king, fight off evil forces, and establishing a kingdom, which there is a prophecy of the coming of a great king to reign for 1,000 years. That none of them know, but they go through some ceremonies and stuff throughout their time, and the members of the Shavath team kind of go through a rotation and random selection. So Leo's the leader of that team currently. He comes from a planet called Armagon, and specifically he lives on, or was born on an island called Mountainfall Island. The inspiration behind that is, or at least the Mountainfall Island portion is essentially there's a Bible verse that talks about even if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you can tell a mountain to cast itself into the sea and it would obey you. So the idea behind that being the island name is that mountains will fall in God's power and in God's will. So continuing on, Leo begins as his basic Malix form, which I already showed you, and he goes through a transformation process throughout the series, ultimately leading into his armored form, which the name is still subject to change, but right now it's called the AOG form, which is Armor of God, which is also another biblical reference, but it's not something that I specifically cite in the comic story. But the idea is that he initially starts as an unlikely leader. He's transformed by his environment and his divine purpose, which in the story there's a master creator who creates these robots and their souls, and he essentially implants these purposes into them that they will ultimately fulfill throughout their life. So and as far as Leo's concerned, when he becomes eventually a leader, he has to decide that he wants to be one. So he was always, he was initially implanted with the purpose to become a leader, for specific reasons in the story. And throughout his life, he goes through good and bad experiences. And when the light is finally shone on the truth of who he is and the fine balance between being good and being evil, he decides to be good and continues with his journey. The other part that I wanted to talk about is that these characters, who I call Maliks, are reflective of us as humankind. The name extends from galaxy machines, so machine, galaxy, Maliks. I kind of think of humans as the same thing. We're galaxy machines. There's all we're in the middle of we're on a floating rock in the middle of space with stars and stuff everywhere. So we're machines in the galaxy, biological machines. And Leo is just one example of many characters to come, as far as having a life journey of ups and downs and the things that transform us through life experience. And all of us have our own mountains to climb. Kind of has to do again with the whole Mountain Fall Island name, and he has to climb physical mountains to traverse through his journey and rescue people and fight evil and inner conflicts and stuff too. The other inspiration with this island is that one half of the island is extremely mountainous terrain. There's even some floating mountains and stuff in the air, while the other half of the mountain is lush forests. It's very evenly leveled. There's not as much mountains to climb or to cast into the sea or whatever, to combat. And he chooses to go on the mountainous path, which is reflective of when Jesus asks us, or tells us, that he's the way, the truth, and the life, that in order to get into the kingdom of heaven, we have to follow a very narrow path, which is very difficult for most people to follow, and that's why many don't follow that path. So it's reflective of somebody who decides they want to seek for truth and go down that path that we're all called to follow to ultimately find the truth. And another reference that's going to be in this first comic that I'm going to be releasing soon within this year, when he goes to travel on the mountainous side of the island, it's because there's a sheep. As I call them shep, so I take away one e and it's like a robotic sheep kind of. Looks really cool. I'll show you later. Actually no, I'll show you a picture now. Come on. There it is. It's backwards, but that's the sheep. And there's initially a herd of 100 of these shep animals, and one of them curiously comes to investigate Leo when he first arrives on the island. And when Leo starts to pursue this shep, the shep turns around all scared and runs up the mountainside, whereas the other 99 stay on the left side of the mountain. And this is reflective of a parable where Jesus is essentially illustrated as being the shepherd who goes after the one sheep to go and rescue him, while the other 99 are safely behind. Like they're not traveling off into the mountains. So he comes to rescue that sheep, and that's another reflection of us as humankind, where when people get lost, and they're looking for the truth, and they need God in their life, God will leave the 99 behind, the ones that are safe, and will go after that one that's gone off into the wilderness and needs rescuing. Okay, so back to Leo. Another part I wanted to discuss is his actual armor. So initially, I just wanted him to look like a really cool robot inspired by my favorite heroes. But as things progressed, I had a more adapted version of what each piece represents, and it's reflective of Ephesians chapter 6, 10 through 18, which talks about the armor of God, which is also why I said his armored form is the AOG, so armor of God. And feel free to look into that. But essentially, each piece is reflective of different weaponry that you use to defend yourself from evil coming to attack you and lead you onto the straight path. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the rest of this for now. I kind of already covered everything, and I guess just to close, I wanted to discuss kind of the concept behind, or the reason why I have all of this imagery and symbolism and reflection of the Bible and stuff in the story. So as you may notice, my story doesn't actually talk directly about biblical references. Like, it doesn't say Jesus was in the story and found Leo and was talking to him. Like, it's all imagery, and it's meant to be in parallel with the stories that are unfolding. And what I aim to do with this is teach concepts of the Bible without actually showing it or being like a all-in-your-face Christian person that's like, hey, you need Jesus or you're screwed. So I want to be able to teach those concepts in a more friendly manner, so that you can still kind of be exposed to some of the important things that are taught through it. And ultimately, you can decide whether that's something you like or not. But even if you're not Christian or you're atheist or non-believer, it's still just a cool comic in general to read. So I want to kind of be able to feed all areas of readers for this type of stuff. Yeah, so it's more of a bite-sized version of like being able to be exposed to these concepts, but it's also not only meant to be a biblical thing, but also to be, this story would be seen as a way to self-reflect, and through the imagery I use and the events that take place in the story, you can use it as a resource to even find resolve in our own moral dilemmas. So like when people think, oh, is it truly good to do this, or is it truly good to do that, I will have particular events that happen where it's reflected through the characters in the story when they deal with similar problems that we would deal with, although in a more of a sci-fi way. And we'd be able to see our own humanness through robots. Robots typically aren't seen as human, but the way that I am portraying them is they are very human. Eventually in the story, I also have intentions of them actually interacting with humans and possibly traveling to Earth and stuff. That's my imagination and brain leading me in all kinds of directions. So anyway, I hope that wasn't too much. If you have any more questions about Leo, feel free to message in the comments, ask questions, message me directly, whatever. And I will see you in the next video. And before that, somebody would like to say bye again. Hold on. Bye. All right. See you guys.